Welcome to the Real Deal Smite God reveal, featuring Nox, the Roman goddess of night.
There's a reason people fear the night. Come find out for yourself.
Hey, you guys want to hear a joke? The Nox design team. Ha! Take that, Hi-Rez! No, but seriously, Nox holds the record for the most reworks of any god in Smite. I think she's had a full kit rework like 2 or 3 times, and her ability numbers and interactions majorly worked on something like 5 times. All within a year and a half, I might add. Hopefully this is the final version of Nox, so I don't have to make another Real Deal reveal on her, but all things considered, probably not. So Nox is a high damage lockdown character that plays a lot like Malzahar from League, but without the voidlings running around the place. Even without that part, she still is just as space aids as Malzahar. So let's talk about how she got that condition. Nox's passive is Flame of the Night. Every ability Nox casts, a candle is lit. For every candle lit, Nox gains 3% magical power, and this can stack 4 times. When Nox takes damage, one of her candles is blown out. Now on paper this passive sounds fair, maybe even really good depending on how you look at it. But in reality this is one of the worst passives in the game. The big problem with it is the fact that enemy damage reduces the stacks. Not enemy gods mind you, but any form of damage. Worse still, chip damage effects count as a new source of damage per chip. So if you're fighting a Kukulkan or Agni, forget it, you might as well not even have a passive. Standing next to a minion wave, good luck even having a stack to work with. And don't even get me started on Malice. Fuck that noise. Now if you want to get as much power from the passive as possible, I would recommend using abilities in the fountain so you can enter the lane at full stacks. Not like it really matters that much anyway, but still. It boggles my mind how awful this passive is, but there you go. Good luck with that shit. Nox's one is Shadow Lock. Nox extends her shadow, rooting and crippling a single enemy god in place and dealing 70 plus 20% of Nox's magical damage every 0.5 seconds for 2 seconds. Nox must channel to maintain hold on the target, but may cancel this ability early. Jeez, great English there, Hi-Rez. Did you get the Russian intern to write that line? While channeling this ability, Nox suffers no directional movement penalty. This ability doesn't sound very good, and that's because on its own, it really isn't. It's just a root and cripple ability since the damage output is pitiful to say the least, even when you enter the late game. How you're supposed to use this ability is you combo it with your 2, but for some reason Hi-Rez put the combo order in reverse order of the key placement, so that really fucks up with the flow of my video to say the least. I mean, you could use this ability on its own, but you'll only be doing 280 flat damage with 0% extra power from your passive, so really you and the enemy will just be sitting around like a couple of retards for 2 seconds since they can't move or dash away and you need to stand near them for the ability to work. Yeah, this is pretty fucking awkward to say the least. A few minor things to take note on about this ability is that the distance you need to stay in for the ability to not break is 70 units, which is the same distance that the ability can be cast. Yeah, like what is this, 6 out of 6 for shit that Hi-Rez didn't mention about the god? Although weirdly enough the Smite Wiki doesn't mention this either. While Nox can move around, she must always face towards the person she's rooting. Also this ability only affects gods, so you can't lane clear with it, which is pretty shitty since most of the other mages in the game have multiple ways to push objectives, but Nox doesn't, so her objective pushing capabilities is significantly worse than most other gods in the game. Nox's 2 is Siphon Darkness. Nox creates a void of darkness that silences all enemies within. After 2 seconds it explodes, dealing 370 plus 100% of Nox's magical damage. Again, this ability doesn't sound that good on its own since the enemy can just walk out of the circle before it explodes, and no, you can't activate the ability early, making it that much shittier. However, you're supposed to combo it with your 1, and that's where the Space Aids comes in. You place your 2 on the enemy god, lock them in with your 1, and watch them die. That's the whole Nox combo. Yeah, so while Nox is good at 100 to 0ing a god with this combo, she's awful at objective pushing since you need to plan ahead where to place the circle to clear a wave, and even then the minions can walk out of it sometimes. Not much else to say really, but the big thing that shuts Nox down is beads, since it will force Nox to cancel her 1 early. So if you can, try and bait the beads out. But at the same time, if you can reliably land the combo, the enemy getting out of your combo once every 160 seconds isn't the biggest problem. Also, something to keep in mind about Nox is that the CC reduction items are not effective against her. It won't allow you to escape from Nox's 1 early since the cripple and root effect is refreshed every time the damage is applied. And the silence is a constant effect in an area, so you can't reduce the silence duration if it's not directly applied to you. Nox's 3 is Shadow Step. Nox dashes forward, dealing 230 plus 70% of Nox's magical damage to all enemies. If she hits an ally god, she leaps into their shadow, traveling with them. When Nox exits a shadow... Oh my fucking god, these descriptions are so shittily written. First of all, the description of what happens isn't even correct. It looks like Nox shrouds an ally god in shadow, not becomes their shadow. Secondly, that makes the second part wrong. Fuck me. You know, I'm just gonna read the rest of her abilities like an Eastern Europeaner whose second language is English, just because this is that badly written.
When Nyx exits a shadow, she deals damages again in a radius around her. Nyx may cancel ability early to exit shadows. Very nice.
Awful description aside, this is one of, if not the most fun to use dash in the game. Really, it's just because you can enter the other gods and hide out.
Hehe, I'm in me special hidey hole.
Because of the interesting mechanic behind the dash, you can hit the same enemy god twice with this one ability if the coordination between you and your team is that good. Unfortunately, the second burst doesn't add a stack onto Nox's passive. I mean, why would it, right? It's not like Nox needs any help to get her passive online, right, Hi-Rez? It's not like you gave strictly better versions of Nox's passive to Raijin and Heibo, right, Hi-Rez? Seriously, fuck this passive right up its tight asshole. A few things that the description doesn't mention, yes, again, is how long you can stay in the god before you're forced out. Okay, well they do tell you, but they don't. The answer is 8 seconds, and it's mentioned in one of Nox's achievements. Why there and not in the main description? I have absolutely no clue. Pretty stupid if you ask me. This also raises another question. If Nox is in a god whose ult makes them airborne, like say Rama, and Nox is in them for the 8-second duration, but the ally is still in the air, what happens? Does Nox leave and fall to the ground, or does the timer get increased until the god lands? Now there's no info in the achievements section for this, but there is on the wiki, and the answer is the latter. Also, when you dash into a god, it counts as a banish on Nox, so it's good to use to avoid damage. I guess that's what they're thinking with her shitty passive. Just dash into an ally to keep your passive up. Yeah, easier said than done, you jackasses. Dash is still pretty fun to use though.
Nyx's ult is Nightare. Nyx unleashes a vortex of dark energy that explodes on contact with an enemy god, dealing 400 plus 75% of Nyx's magical damage to all enemies in range 20, implying 40 plus 5% damage every second for 5 seconds. Enemies hit are also weakened, dealing 40% less damage for the duration.
Yes, Nox releases a vortex. That's why it looks exactly like a ball and has no pull effect. And in range 20. The fuck are these descriptions, Hi-Rez? I have a bit of a confession to make. As much as I like the current version of Nox, I actually prefer her original design. Her original ult, she would cast a shadow in a similar fashion to her one that would attach to an enemy god and deal damage. Plus, if the enemy used any abilities, they would take extra damage. As an ability, it made sense with Nox's lore and her kit, and I would argue that it still does, but for some reason they turned it into this Kamehameha wave attack, like with most of the other mages in this game. I digress. So while this is a decent ult to pick off stragglers, it's better to start a team fight with it so you and your team can outdamage the enemy. Also, the ult will explode if it hits a wall and will still apply the splash damage. I don't know how a shadow can splash in general, but there you go. Actually, that makes for a pretty good Zen riddle. How does a shadow perform a splash? Nah, whatever. That, my friends, is Nox in a nutshell. As horrendous as her abilities section is written, she is a god I do really enjoy playing. Her kit is really all about that lockdown and control, but unfortunately she's one of the worst objective pushers in the game, since most of her abilities either don't affect objectives or are hard to land compared to other mages. But if you do have a team comp that has good lane clear, then she's a good character to pick up. And if you choose her with a Capri on your team, you're a fucking cunt.